Just a little bit about Portland. Hannah mentioned many of the things that the state legislature is looking at, but because my office is here, because Portland is the largest city in this district, 125 towns in the district, but clearly Portland is a very important part of the economic engine. We've tried to keep a focus and be part of the learning experience with the mayor and others to make sure we get to know the needs of the city and are thinking about them firsthand. One of the first things I did was to form a waterfront advisory committee to find the ways that we could assist in development in the waterfront, and we're strong supporters of the berth. As Hannah said, we're strong supporters of having a CAD cell out there so that we can do more dredging for some of the smaller piers. We're looking at some of the insurance issues around FEMA that came up earlier. Anything that we can do to help this community stay vital, and again, in a tough economic time when there isn't enough money out there. And that includes things like a local community health center that was funded under the Recovery Act. Very important for those people who don't have health care coverage, and we expect that will continue to expand. Just a couple of other economic things I want to mention before I say a few things about the health care bill, which is also a huge part of our economy. I've sponsored a working waterfronts bill, and I'm working with my colleagues around the country because I do represent working waterfronts. I see the importance of maintaining that space, of supporting our boat yards and our fishing industries and those businesses that have to be on the waterfront. Coming from a coastal town myself and knowing, this isn't a big economic development time for waterfront development, but you need to make sure that when we get back to some more development time that we haven't lost all that important ground on the waterfront for those businesses. And so we're working with, as I said, members of Congress around the country to find more funding for that and to pass this bill. We have another bill called Jobs for Fishermen, also looking at many of the challenges in the fishing industry, which we have felt deeply here in Portland, but extend up and down the coast. One other thing that's a little bit more distant, but certainly the challenges of the city of Brunswick and the mid-coast. Huge economic issues. I've learned more about base closure than I ever wanted to know. I only wish I had been here to at least have a chance to try to say no, because that's an important strategic resource, the base at Brunswick, and I'm sorry that we're seeing it close as we are now. And those planes moved to Jacksonville. But that's the reality. And again, we've been doing our best to involve ourselves. I sponsored a piece of legislation to allow for the transfer of that land at no cost. Very important to the city of Brunswick in an economic time like this, that they don't have to have everyone pay the full development potential of that land. If people do make money off that land, the Navy gets the money back, but we need to have that little starter legislation. I also passed a piece of legislation, an amendment in the House that helps struggling communities like that to support school construction because of the loss of students and some of the challenges there. I have to say one of the strange things that happened in the Recovery Act was my amendment got pulled out by the Senate, but it'll come back again, I guarantee you. I've learned a lot about the differences between the House and Senate, and as Hannah said, you can never leave the room, although that health care bill was frankly beyond my control. But we had that amendment in there. And again, we're working hard on appropriations funding. I know the community colleges are here today. They're anxious to relocate there and the university system there. So there's all kinds of good things that could help Brunswick in its redevelopment in what could be a difficult transition, but we hope will lead to a very productive site where we're seeing renewable energy, aeronautic activities, just a whole variety of things can go on there. I'm going to stop talking about all those things, but I will say that the only other really important issue that I wanted to just touch on around the economy is the impact of credit and credit availability. Right after we got started in this office, we had an Access to Capital workshop. Many of you were there. We had an overflow crowd of businesses and others talking about how do we get access to more loans. And of course, we've worked very closely with Karen Mills. Maine is lucky to have the administrator of the Small Business Administration here in our own state. She introduced the president the other day. But Karen, as you know, is a wonderful person to work with, very business savvy, and so good about the state of Maine that often when we have an individual business that is just having a tough problem, we can get Karen to sit down with them, which is a rare and fortunate thing. But they've also expanded their access to capital, and we've supported one of the president's initiatives, which is to take another $30 billion of the TARP and continue to put that credit out there, because I know for many businesses who are going through difficult times, we got to keep them going in the next couple of years so that as the economy, we hope, improves, they're still there to take advantage of it, and those jobs are still there. Healthcare reform has obviously been on everybody's plate for the last well, since I got to Congress, and for me, since I was elected to the state legislature in 1992, it's been one of my key issues as a business owner that provides health care insurance, as someone who represents constituents from senior citizens who can't afford the cost of their prescription drugs, to young students who are going without health care, or people who go out every day dealing with a difficult system. And I don't have to tell anybody in this room, it's only gotten more expensive, more challenging for our doctors and hospitals, practitioners, and it is 17% of our economy. It is an enormous, as you know, thing to reform, and certainly this first step didn't happen without plenty of contentious debate. But I, for one, was very proud to vote for the bill. It wasn't everything that I wanted, and interestingly, representing a state like Maine, I can often go back and tell my colleagues who, hear all different things from their constituents, I meet with my Maine Medical Association, the doctors in the state of Maine, who 51% of them voted that we should have single-payer health care. And I try to explain that to my colleagues sometimes. I have protests outside my office, but there are people who think I'm not going far enough to do more on the health care bill. So for me, this was somewhat of a middle ground. It is a very moderate solution to the problem. It certainly changes some of the insurance practices that have been the most egregious, denying people insurance coverage because of a pre-existing condition, putting a lifetime cap on a policy that people often don't know about until they're in dire straits, and a variety of things that we hope will hold down costs. More than anything else, it creates an exchange, and without getting into all the detailed explanation, our goal is to try to set up bigger pools of insurance so that when you're in the individual market or you're a small business owner, you can't do self-insurance or you don't have the advantages of an enormous company, you can have the value of that negotiation. We're moving forward on that. That kicks in 2014, and we put in a variety of things to be there before we get to that point where there is this exchange that you can have more choices and hopefully much more competition. There's been a lot of talk about how it affects businesses, and I just want to say a couple of quick things about that. The only businesses that are mandated to cover their employees are those that have 50 or more employees. There are about 1,800 of those businesses in the state of Maine, 1,800 that have more than 50 employees. According to a Kaiser Family Foundation study, 99.6% of them already cover their employees. So honestly, that leaves us with about a dozen businesses that are in that position of being mandated to do this. And businesses that currently have coverage are actually grandfathered in. So some of the restrictions that will apply in the future, they will already be grandfathered for. But what's important to talk about is the 46,000 small businesses in the state of Maine, the ones I really hear about from a lot, who say the costs are rising at a rate faster than they can continue to cover their employees. They're dropping back on coverage. They're very frustrated about what's going on. And one of the things I'm excited about is those smaller businesses are eligible for a tax credit, especially if you have fewer than 10 employees, you can get up to a 35% tax credit. So I've talked to businesses who retroactively this year, who are already covering their employees, who will get an enormous benefit right out of the gate. And I think that's going to be very important. I think as businesses start to examine how it could be beneficial for them, that many more will sign on and say, you know what, I think I could do this with my employees now. And particularly when it's coupled with the exchange in the future, where we think we'll have more competition and bring down rates. Great things for seniors in this bill. We'll start to close the donut hole. There are benefits for seniors right away this year, rebates on the cost of their prescription drugs, and you can imagine I hear about that all the time. It also gets rid of all co-pays on preventative care for seniors. So annual checkups, colostomies, mastectomy, breast exams, all those things will be co-pay free. One of the things I hear about the most, which is interesting and an important part of this bill, but I didn't anticipate so many people would ask me about it, is you can now keep your child up to 26 on your health care plan. And I'm surprised the number of people, I knew this was going to be a good provision, but the number of people who have said to me, this is just great. My kid's out of college, they've got a job with no health care benefits, and I'm terrified to have them out there in the individual market, which is way too expensive. And for many people who are already on a family plan, your child was free and covered under it anyway. I just talked to a dad a couple of days ago who said, it wasn't extra for me to have my daughter, but at 23 now I can keep her there and know that she's good till 26, and hopefully she will, continue.